Marvin Eats Ha by Brad Tattle.
One evening, Cheryl, the ever-stern manager of Shady Palms Apartments, stood in the courtyard after courting Marvin and Earl. "This isn't just about you two and your king carp anymore. We are going to hold a banquet for the entire apartment complex. That means I need more fish. Lots more fish. Can you do it?" Marvin's eyes twinkled. Earl cracked his knuckles. Their yellow and pink grocery scooters that they had each bought used for $50 hummed to life the very next morning.
Gone fishing.
For the next 2 weeks, Marvin and Earl returned daily to the city pond. Marvin lowered his milk jug and underwater camera into the shadowy caves beneath the banks, scouting out the sleeping carp. Earl, still insisting he was the master noodler of South Carolina and Georgia rivers, would belly down on the grass and noodle the big ones. At the pond, crowds of seniors gathered every day, what with word spreading about the aged noodlers. Krebs's 4-digit hand counter now stood at 23, but nobody could quite tell how many clicks were actually fish and how many were muddy boots, soda cans, or that bicycle frame Earl once mistook for a Leviathan. Earl even taught Krebs and Manuel the fine art of noodling, starting at the tail and carefully moving up towards the fish's head. Manuel's very first noodled catch measured a pitiful 6 inches. The crowd cheered, and he turned red as a beet. Yet by the end of that same week, the story had grown, until Manuel was boasting that the little fish had been exactly 25 inches long, just like all the others in his legendary fishing tales.
Cheryl, the enigma.
Cheryl remained an enigma to her tenants. There were rumors about her mysterious youth in Iceland, and why had she changed her real name, Sigurbu Ojanestata, except that it was a name nobody at Shady Palms could pronounce. All they knew was that she spoke of Iceland with a mix of nostalgia and determination, but most of all she let you know that Icelanders ate a lot of fish. The city pond noodlers provided the means for Shady Palms Apartments to experience traditional Icelandic food: boiled fish over boiled potatoes, fish fried in butter over potatoes fried in butter, fish casserole, smoked fish, dried fish jerky. "Every part will be used," she declared, even some of the innards. The residents shifted uneasily, but no one dared challenge Cheryl. She was in full Icelandic command mode.
Freezes.
Soon, the small freezers in Marvin's, Earl's, and Cheryl's apartments were jammed full of fish wrapped in white butcher paper. Judy, still trying to live down the shame of the grape pudding incident, volunteered her freezer. Marvin suspected it was an act of redemption. But not the king carp. That one Cheryl kept fresh and hidden.
The secret of the king carp.
One moonless night, Cheryl and Walter, the reluctant maintenance man, dug a hole behind the maintenance shed. She lined it with sand and river stones, then lowered the king carp inside. She covered it with more sand, gravel, and finally heavy rocks on the top to press out the fluids. Walter scowled, but obeyed. Cheryl was the boss. Several weeks passed, and an intermittent topic among the apartment dwellers surfaced from time to time. It concerned a slight smell that, if one were at just the right place and at just the right time, one could catch just the smallest whiff coming from the direction of the maintenance shed. Walter swore it wasn't him. If it was brought up to her, Cheryl said nothing. After 8 weeks, she unearthed the carp. It was not the same fish that she had buried. The fish had transformed. She hung the carp in strips inside the maintenance shed to dry. Walters protested, but again Cheryl was boss. "This," she said, "is how we make ha karl in Reykjavik. Ha karl is my favorite childhood dish. Only this time, we will have to substitute carp instead of shark."
A building full of fish.
Meanwhile, Marvin and Earl took to hanging strips of carp in their apartments to make jerky. Before long, every inch of their walls was draped in salted, drying fish. Visitors had to shove curtains of jerky aside just to reach a chair. Other residents began crossing the hallway when Marvin or Earl approached, claiming they smelled like walking bait shops. Still, Marvin and Earl were happy. "The sweet smell of victory," Earl muttered.
Sif arrives.
At last, Cheryl's uncle Sif arrived from Iceland. He was the same age as Marvin and Earl, though he looked older. Short and stout, with a thick mane of flowing white hair and a beard to match. His eyebrows were so bushy and wild they cast shadows of their own. Beneath all the hair, his deeply wrinkled face gave him the look of something weathered and ancient. When Sif walked into the lobby, The odor of boiled, fried, and dried fish seemed to follow him, as if even the smell recognized its master. Cheryl embraced him, and the two immediately set about finishing the hakal.
The great banquet.
As the time for the banquet approached, residents around the shady palms signed up to help prepare food. Some to boil potatoes, some to boil fish, some to fry potatoes in butter, some to fry fish in butter, and some to make fish casserole. Naturally, Cheryl supervised the recipes to ensure authenticity throughout the meal. The recreation hall at Shady Palms was transformed into a slice of Iceland. Long folding tables groaned under the weight of steaming bowls of boiled potatoes, platters of fried carp, casseroles bubbling golden, and piles of jerky stacked like kindling. Proudly, the Icelandic flag stood next to the stars and stripes near the podium. Sif moved to double-check the central dish supported by a silver stand and covered by a large, shiny, round silver dome. The king carp, now cut into cubes of hakal. Using a knife, he had trimmed away the brown crust that had formed while hanging in the maintenance shed and had sliced the dried fermented meat into small cubes, each no bigger than a die. When Sif lifted the lid just a crack to peek in, he test-smelled the hakar one final time. Perfect, Sif said to himself, and closed the lid. Cheryl stood tall, holding the megaphone that she had removed from her e-scooter. Tonight, she announced, we experience Icelandic traditional cuisine. It is the actual food I grew up on and miss so much. Thank you, everyone, for helping prepare this fantastic meal. And thanks to Marvin and Earl for providing the fish. And last of all, thanks to the fish for joining us tonight for dinner.
Hakal.
The residents gathered around. Plates that were once barren were now filled. Potatoes slathered in butter, casseroles scooped high, fried fish still sizzling. But all eyes were on the central dish that said, do not open. When everyone had eaten so that not one bone was left on a plate, Cheryl announced that grand finale of the banquet, the central dish. She overflowed with excitement. This dish, she announced with exuberance, was my childhood favorite. Iceland is known for this wonderful surprise the world over. And now, you get to actually taste hakar for your very self. Sif will provide instructions. Hakar smells worse than it tastes, stated Sif, and so it is recommended that the beginner pinch his nose while eating his first cube. That sounded vaguely familiar to Marvin, something about John the Greek. With that, Sif removed the large shiny silver dome, and the crowded room gasped in unison at the overwhelming ammonia-saturated fish odor. The room fell silent, cheeks puffed, eyes watered. It was overwhelming. It was devastating. Earl staggered backward, muttering, this has got to be against the health code. Cheryl and Sif each popped a cube into their mouths and chewed with gleeful delight. An acquired taste, Sif reminded Cheryl, his great eyebrows fluttering with each word. Earl gagged. Just a little, and then a lot, but he forced his cube down. Not bad, he said, forgetting to let go of his nose. Not good, but not bad. Marvin whispered to Earl something about catfish guts smelling better. But once one grows older, sort of like 92-year-old Marvin, something happens to the taste buds. They change, they adapt. They take what once was very, very bad as a child and turn it into an adult's favorite food, like spinach with white sauce and boiled eggs, or like fig Newton cookies. That is what happened to Marvin. That fish that John the Greek fermented from the fish Marvin harpooned died him as a youth. But it turns out he ate 18 hakal cubes and only stopped eating them because they were gone. Cheryl and Sif had eaten the others.
Epilogue. In true Icelandic fashion, Cheryl sold the leftover carp to the Brits to use in their fish and chips.